what I'd like to discuss today is the essential definition of the mitzvah of shofar and the famous chakira, whether shofar is a mitzvah of tekiah or shmiyah, or perhaps both. And there was a sefer written approximately 5 centuries ago by Rav Yaakov Chagiz called the Yom Trua, in which he claims that it's both, that we have 2 elements that make up the mitzvah of shofar. Number 1, the tekiah, and number 2, the shmiyah. And in the terminology that I'm used to from my Rebbe, it would be the Maisa mitzvah is tekiah, and the kiyum mitzvah is shmiyah. But I don't want to get into that whole definition. Let's just say the way the Yom Trua has it, you have to have both a tekiah and a shmiyah. Now, what we want to study today are the various nafkaminas la halacha between tekiah and shmiyah. For example, we begin with the nusach habracha, and you will see that in Hegyonei Halacha, Rav Mirsky Shlita has gathered together a number of sources that are otherwise almost inaccessible to us, including a famous tshuva, the Rambam. But I don't have access right now to the tshuvas of Rambam, so I'll rely on Rav Mirsky. And that is the Nusach HaBracha. What is the correct Nusach HaBracha for the mitzvah of shofar? The Gemara doesn't actually address this question. It was first addressed by the Rosh in Masechta Rosh Hashanah. And we should come to the table without any preconditions or prejudices about what the Nusach HaBracha is. We may be used to one Nusach, the Rishonim to another nusach. And I think we have an exact case right here in terms of what nusach we should use for the bracha. And according to the Rosh in the name of Rabbeinu Tam, the correct nusach of the bracha should be litkoa b'shofar, not on the shmiyah, but rather on the tekiah. And if you think that Rabbeinu Tam is a das yachid, and he is the exception to the rule, standing, as it were, alone, Robinson Crusoe on an island. That's not so. Because the Shiltei Giborim says, in the name of the Riaz, one of the great Rishonim, that the Tokeah should make the bracha litkoa b'shofar. So it's not just the Rosh in the 4th parak of Rosh Hashanah, the name of Rabbeinu Tam, but moreover, it's the Shiltei Giborim in the name of the Riaz. In fact, it goes much earlier than that, back as early as the Gaonim. And Rav Amram Gaon is quoted in the Sefer HaManhig as formulating the bracha of litkoa b'shofar. In fact, the Sefer HaManhig claims that in most areas in Ashkenaz, back in Germany and France, the Nusach HaBracha was litkoa b'shofar. The Rosh then goes ahead and quotes a Ravya, one of the Chachmei Ashkenaz, one of the Balei Tosfos, who in turn quotes the Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi says that the blower of the shofar should be Mavarech Asher Kitshon Mitzvosav Etzivonu Lishmoa B'Kol Shofar, which is a nusach that we're familiar with. Now, what we're going to focus on for a moment is the Rambam Shita, because the Rambam is perhaps the most extreme Shita on this issue. And he goes as far as saying that the mitzvah is shmiyah shofar, not tekiah. And it would seem that that's not only as far as the Nusach HaBracha, which the Rambam formulates as Asher Kitshon Mitzvos Tivanu Lishmoa Kol Shofar, and that's clear in the Rambam, but it goes even beyond that, because the Rambam is going to have something to say in the tshuva about those who mistakenly think, according to the Rambam Shita, that the mitzvah is tekiah shofar. So we'll see how the Rambam is going to, if I could use the idiomatic phrase, lace it in to those who might have thought that the mitzvah is the blowing of the shofar. So again, the first nafkamina we have is the Nusach HaBracha. But let's go on. The Rambam, first of all, in Sefer HaMitzvahs, and we're talking about Mitzvahs Aseh Kuf Ayin 170, Shetzivanu Lishmoa Kol Shofar. Listen carefully to the Rambam. And that wasn't a play on words, but listen carefully. The Rambam says the mitzvah is to listen to the shofar, to hear the shofar. And that means clearly that if one were to be tokea b'shofar, but he didn't hear the shofar, he would not have fulfilled his mitzvah. So, for example, let's say a person blows the shofar and he puts, we used to call it flents, that's a company name, earplugs into his ears in such a way that he cannot hear the shofar. The Rama would maintain that he missed the mitzvah because the essence of the mitzvah is lishmoa kol shofar. And before we get again to the tshuva of the Rambam, because the tshuva of the Rambam is just a very strong TKO, as we call it in boxing, an argument against those who maintain that the mitzvah is tekiah. But before that, the Rambam opens up Hilchas Shofar, Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph, Mitzvah Aseh Torah, Lishmoa Truas HaShofar Brashar. So the Rambam 3 times over did not waste any time or any ink to ram it into us. Consistently, the Rambam is very, very outspoken and consistent. The mitzvah is shmiyah. And therefore, when the Torah says Yom Trua Yelachem, it's referring to the kol shofar, not to the blasting of the shofar, the blowing of the shofar. Because you can interpret Yom Trua as referring to the Meiriah meaning the Baal Tokea who's blowing the shofar. But the Rambam says no. The Rambam says Yom Trua means the Trua itself is the mitzvah. The kol shofar is the mitzvah. And therefore, if hearing the kol shofar is the mitzvah, then the bracha has to be on Shmias HaShofar. And therefore the Rambam says, Mevarech asher kitchom tzosel shma kol shofar. Now we said that the nafkamina is the nusach habracha, but the Rambam goes on way beyond this. The Rambam writes in Perek Aleph Milchus Shofar Halacha Gimel that if one steals a shofar, now wait a minute, let's backtrack a little. If one steals a lulav, can he be yotzei the mitzvah of netilas lulav with a stolen lulav? Not even in the 6 days where there's no requirement of lachem, he cannot be yotzei. And the Gemara says that's called a mitzvah abba bavera. If a person steals an animal and he wants to bring it as a korban on the mizbeach, lo yotzei yedei chovaso, to mitzvah abba bavera. Person steals a matzah, no go. Says the Rambam, shofar agazel shetaka bo yatza. In the case of a stolen shofar, he has fulfilled his mitzvah. And Reb Chaim Brisker worked very hard to try to figure this out. How could it be if you steal a lulav, you steal a matzah, you steal any sort of object of a mitzvah, and that disqualifies the mitzvah korban. And yet, if you steal a shofar, you could be yotzei with the shofar. So Reb Chaim asked the following question: what's the heftzah shel mitzvah? In every single mitzvah, we have to always identify and define the heftzah shel mitzvah. And Reb Chaim was of the opinion that if you steal something, then that object becomes a heftzah shel avera. It's gazul, and the avera defines the heftzah. You don't see it with the naked eye. When you look at this lulav, it looks identical to a lulav that's yours, that's genuinely yours. Can anyone suggest that by looking at the lulav, you can tell that it's a stolen lulav? But yet, Reb Chaim insisted that the stealing of the lulav generates a shame gazul in the heftzah shel lulav. And once the lulav is gazul, and again, when I say lulav, it would be a behema shel hegdesh, it could be a matzah shel pesach, then it is a chefza de avera. Do you follow that? So we start with the Maisa Gzela, and we end with a Chalus Shem in the Chefta. Only in Brisk could you hear such a thing. I don't even know if in Yerushalayim Brisk they know about this. This is the Bostonian Brisk, or the New York Brisk. And Reb Chaim insisted that once you steal something, the Shem Gozel is Chal on the Chefta, and that makes it into a Chefta de Avera. And the Torah disqualifies a chefza de avera for a mitzvah. So now Reb Chaim says, well, what's the chefza of the mitzvah? In the case of lulav, it's the lulav which is stolen. In the case of matzah, it's the matzah that was stolen. In the case of the behemoth hekdesh, it was the behemoth that was stolen. And in each one of those cases, lulav, matzah, and behemoth defines the chefza. And the chefza has to be a chefza shel mitzvah. But a chefza shel avera, because it's gazul, is disqualified. It's possible to be a chefza shel mitzvah. What shall I say? It reminds me of ein kateger nasa saneger. Reb Chaim says, what is the chefza shel mitzvah of shofar? And what would you have said if you were woken us up in the middle of the night? What is the chefza shel mitzvah?
Shofar.
The shofar. That's what we would have said. Zok the Rambam name. The Rambam writes, shofar gozel shetaka b'yotza she'ein ha-mitzvah ela b'shmias hakol. The mitzvah is not the blowing of the shofar, but rather hearing the kol shofar. V'afal pishlo nogavo. He doesn't even have to make contact with the shofar. He could blow air into the shofar without the shofar being attached to his lips. Like Bio, he didn't lift up the shofar. Nevertheless, Hashomea Yotza. And here's the punchline. Says the Rambam, this is not Reb Chaim, this is the Rambam. V'ein bekol din gezel. How is Reb Chaim going to explain those words? Ein bekol din gezel. The chefza of the mitzvah is not the shofar. What is the chefza of the mitzvah? The kol. But you cannot steal a kol. A kol can never be a chefza de avera, a chefza of gazel. You can't steal a kol. The Gemara tells us in Psachim, kol mara v'reach ein bo mishum me'ilah. Me'ilah means stealing. You cannot steal a kol. Just like you can't steal gas, right? Because it's avir bialma, it doesn't have a substance to it. A kol is like avir bialma. So the Rambam is not getting into a scientific analysis of what creates a kol and what is a kol in its essence and the sound waves. That doesn't interest the Rambam. The Rambam is telling us that whatever you define as kol, it doesn't lend itself to a shame guzzle, and therefore it's not a chefza de avera. And if the mitzvah is the kol, the chefza of the mitzvah is the kol, says Reb Chaim, and there can't be gezel in the kol, then you can be yotze with the shofar guzzle. Because the gzela is chal on the shofar, but not on the kol. Because ein bo din gezel, there's no gezel in a kol. This is the most abstract kind of analysis. Try to teach this to a cheder child in Kita Aleph. I challenge you to try to do so. This is like the apex of abstraction. We are making 3 different breakthroughs here. Breakthrough number 1 is that mitzvah bab avera means that the Gazul, the Shem Avera, is chal in the chefza. That itself is mind-boggling. Nothing changed in the chefza. Nain, it's Gazul. And Gazul means the Avera takes on the object takes on the identity of the Avera. It's no longer a lulav that happens to have been stolen. It's a lulav at Gazul. That's a hyphenated term. And now we have a second breakthrough. And that is that mitzvah ba'avera is a psul in the hefta shel mitzvah. And now we get to the major breakthrough of Reb Chaim in the Rambam. This is what we call in modern Hebrew the pritzas derech, the revolution. And that is that shofar is not a hefta shel mitzvah. Kol is the hefta shel mitzvah. Says the Rambam. If the mitzvah would be tekiah, so with what do I do the ma'aseh tekiah? With what object? The shofar. Then guzzle will be possible. But if the mitzvah is not the tekiah, but rather what? The shmiya, then what is the correct identity of the hefta shel mitzvah? Not the shofar, you got it wrong. Burzon, you got it wrong. But rather the kol. Says Reb Chaim, if mitzvah ba'avera means that the shem guzzle is chal in the hefta, and if in the case of shofar the hefta shel mitzvah, which you want to passel b'toras, guzzle is not the shofar itself because there's no mitzvah of tekiah, there's only a mitzvah of shmiya, then the mitzvah there, then the hefta shel mitzvah is the kol. Says the Rambam, ein b'kol din gezel. You can never generate a shem guzzle on a kol. A kol is not a physical mamoshistic object, and it cannot become a hefta de avera. It cannot be considered guzzle. So you stole a shofar chas v'shalom, and then you produced a kol, which is the hefta the mitzvah, and the mitzvah is now shmiyas hakol. Well, guess what? The shmiyas hakol has nothing to do with the avera. Why? Because the hefta shel mitzvah, the kol, is not guzzle. Ein bo din gezel. But the Rambam admits that if you would have defined the mitzvah of shofar as tekiah, then what would have been the hefta shel mitzvah? The shofar. And if the shofar was the hefta of mitzvah and it was guzzle, it would have the same status, the same din as a lulav ha-guzzle, as a behema nigzelis for korban, as a matzah nigzelis, and it would be possible. So then, according to the Rambam, we have a second nafkamina between tekiah and shmiyah, and that is whether the shofar is a hefta shel mitzvah and whether or not a shofar guzzle would be possible for the mitzvah. We hold, says the Rambam, that the mitzvah is not tekiah, but rather what? Shmiyah. Therefore, the hefta of the mitzvah is not the shofar, but rather the kol. And since there's no gezel in kol, as a hefta shel mitzvah, the kol coming from a shofar guzzle is kosher lotzes bo yedei chovos. But now we go on to the tshuva, the Rambam. And here, my friends, in this third nafkamina, we really, what shall I say? We go way out.
Is there something else that we can analyze the same way? Maybe a siddur for tefillah?
Right.
Would you say the same
stolen
kind of thing?
siddur would be kosher. Let's say you carry a lulav 4 amos b'shus harabim on Shabbos. It would still be kosher. Why? Because carrying the object does not change the nature of the object. But stealing the object, that's a unique halacha that gezel is chal in the hefta. Its name has changed. It now is called a hefta guzzle. The fact that you carried it 4 amos b'shus harabim does not change the identity of the object.
And even if there's a monetary value to the to the thing which doesn't have mamashus. So let's say, for example, you mentioned gas. So even though there's a monetary value, I cannot steal gas. So let's say if the kol shofar has a monetary value, you're charging for people to hear the shofar. There's a charge for the actual that, and you.
But Bobby, I would say the following, if I could just interject for a moment. The monetary value is on the hana that you get from the gas, not for the gas itself. You don't pay for the gas. You're paying for the benefits that you get from the gas. There's no kinyan on gas. You can't make a ma'aseh kinyan on gas, no matter how much you could sell it for. I can make a mechira in which I sell you the benefits and the zchuyot, what we call the rights to benefit from something that's a davar she'ein bo mamish. And the only kinyan that would operate in such a case is what's called a kinyan sudar. but I cannot make a kinyan on a davar shein bo mamish, and if I cannot make a gzela on a davar shein bo mamish. But let me get back now to the Ram Tshuva, because if we end this year without the Ram Tshuva, I'm going to be doing tshuva, if you know what I mean. So what does the Rambam say in tshuva? This is on page 187, and I thank David again for the splendid job that he always does. He's always the man on the, it's great. I can notify him on Wednesday morning, and by him, it's Tuesday night. So it turns out that the Rambam in tshuva says something unbelievable. And you see to what extent the Rambam was like a brisker lamdan, so abstract in his thinking. The Rambam writes the following. He says, the mitzvah is shmiya not tkiyah. Okay, I'm just jumping ahead of myself by one line. He says, im haisa mitzvah tkiyah. He's like challenging the Rabbeinu Tam, or whoever maintains that the mitzvah is the tkiyah. Hayitzar kol echad v'echad litkoa bi'atzmo. The Hersta Maisa, the Rambam is saying that the entire structure of the Mishnayos and the Gemaras, that Ruvain is blowing and Shimon is Yotze Yidei Chovaso by hearing the blowing of Ruvain, all that goes out the tubes. Cross out and rip out pages and pages of Gemara and throw it in the trash can. Because you're telling me that the mitzvah is tkiyah. And if the mitzvah is tkiyah, then every single person has to blow the shofar himself personally. And the Rambam gives an unbelievable equation. He says the following. What about lulav? Can I ask you to take a lulav for me? Can your lekicha or netilas lulav be motzi me? I have to take the lulav myself. Or sukkah. Can I ask you to sit in the sukkah on my behalf? Can I ask you to wear tefillin on my behalf? Can I ask you to daven on my behalf? There's no such thing as shlichus and mitzvahs. It's a misnomer. It would be great. Imagine if there were shlichus and mitzvahs. I can appoint a shliach. It might cost me something to do all the mitzvahs for me. And I end up doing no mitzvahs. I can sit idly and do what I want, play the stock market, and build buildings over here like a kablan, and you do all the mitzvahs for me. Great deal. No. The guf ha'adam has to be involved in the mitzvah. There is no agent or proxy for a guf ha-mitzvah. And therefore, says the Rambam, if the mitzvah were tkiyah, every person would have to blow himself personally. He could not be yotze by proxy to have someone else blow for him, which we know is not true. And therefore, the Rambam writes that Hayitzarech im haisa mitzvah tkiyah hayitzar kol echav yechel l'tkoa liatzmo k'mo shechayv kol adam belulav ubesuk. V'kein vadai, the mitzvah is not what? Not tkiyah, but rather shmiyah. Hashomea shelo taka. If a person hears, well, guess what? If the mitzvah is tkiyah and he didn't blow, he just heard, lo yatsa. If the mitzvah is shmiyah, yatsa. Hatokeh shelo shoma. Okay, so now we get to nafkamina number 4, which was really number 1. If you blew the shofar but you didn't hear it, that was my mashal from Flens, lo yatsa. Why? I blew the shofar. Says the Ram, you didn't hear the shofar. The mitzvah is shmiyah. Ha mitzvah is shmiyah v'lo tkiyah. Ukemo sha'asukkah. Ha mitzvah yeshiva. Ubelulav netila. Is so too the mitzvah of shofar is b'shmiyah. Did he hear the shofar? Did he sit in sukkah? Did he take the lulav? If the answer is yes, he was yotze. If the answer is no, he wasn't yotze. V'lachein, says the Rambam at the end of this tshuva, Tzarech levarech lishma kol shofar. And it's interesting that the Rambam adds the word kol shofar. He doesn't say lishma shofar, but lishma shofar sounds like you're attaching yourself to the shofar. Nay. It's lishma kol shofar. As we said before, what's the heft to the mitzvah? The kol. So let's just summarize 4 nafkaminas in this chakira, where the mitzvah is tkiya or shmir. Nafkamina number 1, somebody blows the shofar, he doesn't hear it. Rabosa, are you with me? Do you hear me? Oh, good. So we were yotze the mitzvah shmir. If the mitzvah shmir, he heard the shofar, he's yotze. If the mitzvah is tkiya, I'm sorry, if the mitzvah is shmir and he blew the shofar but he didn't hear it, he wasn't yotze. He's got to hear it. Nafkamina number 2, if he stole a shofar, can he be yotze kol shofar with shmir even though the shofar was stolen? Nafkamina number 3, do I have to blow the shofar? If the mitzvah shmir, all I have to do is hear the shofar. If the mitzvah is tkiya, I have to blow the shofar. And I can't be yotze vicariously through someone else blowing the shofar. Just like I can't be yotze vicariously with lulav and with sukkah. And the 4th nafkamina is the nusach habracha. The bracha should be lishma kol shofar and not litko b'shofar. Now, Rav Mirsky Shlita adds a very interesting point here. I mean, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it, but it's very cute. He quotes the Sefer Charedim, which was authored by Rebbe Elazar Azakri. And according to the Sefer Charedim, every single mitzvah is connected to a different part of the body, a different aver. And when he gets to the mitzvah of shofar, he tells you that the mitzvah of shofar is on the ears, not on the mouth. It's a mitzvah tluya ba'ozen, which means shmir. Now, from everything we've said until now, we have one gapping hole. How will Rabbeinu Tam V'Siyoso, who maintain that the definition of the mitzvah of shofar is tkiya, how will they justify the fact that I didn't blow the shofar? He blew the shofar. I heard his kol shofar, but I didn't blow the shofar. And if you'll tell me, well, he's my shliach, and his act of tkiya is related to me, but how is that different than sukkah and then lulav? Before we answer that question, let's ask another question. And this kasha is directed at the Rambam by the Yom Trua. You'll see this on the top of page 188. The Mishnah tells us in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, he tells you it's on Chavtes, Cheresh Shota v'Katan Ein Motziin Es Harabim Yidei Chovas. So I have a katan, and he's an expert Baal Tekeya, and I want him to blow shofar on our behalf. So the Yom Trua attacks the Rambam, and he says the following: Bishleim, if the mitzvah with Tekiya, okay, the child is not a bar chiyuva, and his ma'aseh Tekiya does not register al pi din. But if the mitzvah is to produce a kol shofar, and therefore the mitzvah is shmir, what difference does it make who blew the shofar? As long as I heard the kol shofar, that should be sufficient. I know things are kind of jumpy around here. Oh. So what's the answer to the Yom Trua's question? Why would the Rambam, well, let's see it this way. How would the Rambam justify that cherish shot of a katan, you can't be yotze the mitzvah of shofar. Anybody? Everybody?
That it's not called kol shofar.
Excellent. If I was in Canada, I'd give you a hug. Because he says, as we say in Yiddish, zum Zach. It's not just a physical kol shofar. The mitzvah is to create a halachic kol shofar. The kol shofar has to have a chal Hashem kol shofar. It has to have a halachic status as a kol shofar. There are many, many dinim in kol shofar. What is a kol shofar? Which shofar did it come from? How many tkiyos? Is there a tkiya, trua, all those dinim. You've got to create a cheftz of a kol shofar, which is a kol shofar al pi din. Who could create such a kol shofar? Only a bar chiyuva. Again, we're saying radical chidushim today. Only a bar chiyuva can generate a kol shofar. So when you hear the kol shofar that was produced by a katan, you didn't hear a kol shofar. Again, it's not physical. It's all abstract. I'm telling you the honest truth. Could you scientifically analyze a kol shofar in a lab and tell me the difference between the kol shofar that was blown by someone who has shtei saras and he doesn't, or someone who doesn't have shtei saras? Ridiculous. That katan might be a better shofar blower than anybody else, but it doesn't matter. He's a la bar chiyuva, and if he's a la bar chiyuva, he cannot produce a kol shofar al pi din. Whereas the Yom Trua went very far with this kasha. He said that even according to the Rambam, there are two parts to the mitzvah. There's a part which is the mitzvah of Tekiah and a part which is the mitzvah of Shmir. You have to have both. And if you can't check off both boxes, and the Tokeah here was a katan, then you can't be Yotze. Now, I asked you before, what happens if you put earplugs in your ears? So again, if you're the Tokeah, then according to Rabbeinu Tam, who holds that the mitzvah is Tekiah, that's fine. But if you hold like the Rambam that the mitzvah is Shmir, then you didn't hear the shofar. You plugged up your ears. So the Gemara knew about earplugs. I'm just joking. But the Gemara has a case that is exactly identical to earplugs. And that's called Hatokeah L'toch HaBar. He blows the shofar into a bar, and instead of hearing the kol shofar, he hears the echo of the kol shofar bouncing off the walls of the ditch.
You could have said
I'm sorry.
You could have said somebody who was deaf as well, no?
The chiddush of Tokeah L'toch HaBar is that the gavra is capable of hearing, as opposed to a cheresh.
Yeah, but what are you saying? What are you saying about somebody who's a cheresh? Would you say not a cheresh, somebody who is deaf? Would you say that he would not be able to mikayim somebody else's? If you heard a cheresh, a deaf person blowing, according to the Rambam, would you say that he would be mikayim the mitzvah?
Well, if he's potter for the mitzvah, then I'm tempted to think that he cannot create a kol shofar al pi din. But we're asking a different question. We're asking, according to Rabbeinu Tam, who says that the mitzvah is the tekiah, if he blows the shofar, but he hears only the echo of the kol shofar, that's called Tokeah L'bar, what should be the din? He blew the shofar. He fulfilled the mitzvah of tekiah. And yet, the Mishnah says, Hatokeah L'toch HaBar lo yotza. The Rambam is gleich. smooth. The Rambam is going to say the mitzvah shmiya, and he didn't hear the kol shofar. He heard an echo of the kol shofar, but not the original. But if I hold like Rabbeinu Tam, that the mitzvah is tekiah, he was tokea. So what if he was tokea l'tochabar? That doesn't interfere or undermine the tekiah. It might interfere with the shmiya, but not the tekiah. And therefore, the kol trua, the Yom Trua, claims that there are two parts to the mitzvah. You can't just say it's a mitzvah of tekiah. Because if you say it's a mitzvah of tekiah, then tokeh bar should be yotzeh. On the other hand, you can't just say it's a mitzvah of shmiya, because then I should be able to hear it from a cheresh shot to v'kata, because they produced a kol shofar. So that question we answered already. Against the Yom Trua, we want to insist that the kol shofar has to be generated by a gavra bar chiyuv, even according to the Rambam. Otherwise, it's not a kol shofar. But the other question, namely tokel l'tocha bar lo yatsa, that's a real difficult kasha on Rabbeinu Tam. And here's where I think we have to agree with the Yom Trua. As much as I'm fighting tooth and nail against the Yom Trua here, I have to concede that he's right. In Rabbeinu Tam's framework, you've got to assume that there are two parts to the mitzvah. And the reason why I have to add the element of shmiya to the Rabbeinu Tam of Tekiah is, for number one, because of Tokeh Bar, but I think there's an additional reason why we need the Kiyum Shmiya according to Rabbeinu Tam. Because only if there's an element of Kiyum Shmiya can I begin to understand what we call Shomer Ka'ona, that even though I didn't blow the shofar, the Rambam's argument in the Tshuva, that according to you, if you hold that the mitzvah is tekiah, then every single person has to blow. The answer to that has to be that although tekiah is the ma'aseh mitzvah, and the bracha according to Rabbeinu Tam is on the ma'aseh mitzvah, namely al tekiah shofar, litkah b'shofar, but nevertheless the kiyum mitzvah is achieved through shmiya, and ha tokel l'tocha bar doesn't have the kiyum shmiya. He may have the ma'aseh mitzvah of tekiah, but he doesn't have the kiyum mitzvah of shmiya. And not only that, I begin to understand how Rabbeinu Tam can tolerate that Shimon hears the tekiah of Ruvain. Shimon was not involved personally in the ma'aseh tekiah, and he was yotzei. And the answer is because Shimon links up to Ruvain's tekiah because of the second element in shofar, which even Rabbeinu Tam has to admit and accept, namely shmiya. So now you're telling me that shmiya is a kiyum mitzvah, the ma'aseh mitzvah, and then the bracha should reflect the ma'aseh mitzvah over l'asiyosan, is tekiah. But the kiyum mitzvah is shmiya. Well, if the kiyum mitzvah is shmiya, then if I hear your blowing, I am now linking up through the kiyum shmiya to your tekiah, which means that, in effect, you can separate between the tokeh and the shomer. I would even go further, and you'll laugh me out of the ball game. I would even say that if you are blowing a shofar in your own room, there's no one else there. There are really two people there. There's the tokeh and the shomer. The tokeh who's involved in the ma'aseh mitzvah, and the shomer who's mekayim the mitzvah to shmiya. It's an unbelievable split, which we don't have neither in lulav, nor in matzah, nor in behemoth hegdesh, and we have no parallel whatsoever. That there are two parts to the mitzvah, and shofar is a hybrid mitzvah, if you will, with a ma'aseh mitzvah and a kiyum mitzvah. And the ma'aseh mitzvah and the kiyum mitzvah are separate, are different one from the other. The ma'aseh mitzvah is tekiah, and the bracha reflecting the ikra mitzvah should always be on the asiyah, namely the tekiah, but the kiyum mitzvah is shmiya. Otherwise, why is Tokea Lebar Lo Yotza? So at this point, I must agree to the Yom Trua. He has me down, what's I call, he's pinning me down to the ground. And the ref is calling 1, 2, 3, up to 10. He's got me in a headlock. I can't reject the Yom Trua with regard to Rabbeinu Tam. I want to see, Joe, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a challenge. You defend Rabbeinu Tam without the Yom Trua's conclusion that Rabbeinu Tam also requires Shmir. And that's the key of my mitzvah. Can you do
I'm
that
going to
for me?
say I'm going to say that tekiah has to be, like we said before, just like a cotton can't give you he's not a baldas to give you the thing. So too,
He
when
can't
you
give me a
blow
cold
in,
shofar.
right, he can't give you, because so too when you blow, it's not saying you blow and it went into the bore. He says that tekiah betocha bore. So as soon as you blow inside the pit, it's not considered a kol. And the tokeya has to have the ability, the blowing itself has to have an ability to make a proper sound, a call of a shofar. When it's inside the pit, it's not a call of a shofar. So it's the same. You couldn't say that that's the connection.
Yeah, but then you're saying that it's not a tekiah because I didn't. Again, let's say somebody else heard the shofar before
They're
it
not,
bounced off. He would be
no,
Yotze.
but as soon as you're inside as soon as he's inside the bore, so it's not going to give you a proper sound to begin with.
Yeah, but no, Joe. The Gemara says, I don't want to get into all the details, that if two people are standing in the bar, one next to the other, then the one who is right next to the shofar, he could hear directly the call from the shofar. The other person has to hear it when it bounces off the walls. But again, leaving all those details on the side, I find it very hard to accept that according to Rabbeinu Tam, the tekiah can only be a valid candidate as a tekiah if there's a shmir, unless you assume, like the Yom Trua, that there are two parts to the mitzvah. There's the Maisa mitzvah and the Kiyama mitzvah. And the Kiyama mitzvah is contingent on shmir, even according to Rabbeinu Tam. And that's what I believe, according to Rabbeinu Tam, links up the Shomea with the Tokeah, because you have the Rambam in Tshuva who yells and screams. If you're going to tell me it's the mitzvah of tekiah, then how can I be yotze with your tekiah? But the answer is there's another element here of shmir. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a mitzvah of Kriyas HaMegillah, is there not? And what's the Nusach HaBracha? Asher kitshanu mitzvot zimanu al mikra Megillah. I didn't read the Megillah. Did I read the Megillah? Halavai, I should read the Megillah. By now, I'm old enough to read the Megillah because I've heard it so many times. But how could the tzibur be yotze through the Kriya of the Koreh? And the answer is because there's another element in Kriya. Even though the Iker mitzvah is the Kriya, which is the Maisa mitzvah in an active sense, but there's a passive part of the mitzvah. What's that? To hear the Megillah reading. Shmir. So now you have a composite mitzvah of Kriya and Shmir. If that be the case, then your Kriya relates to me. Why? Because I hear your Kriya. And since Shmir is the Kiyama mitzvah, therefore, I'm connected to your Maisa mitzvah through the Kiyama mitzvah. The Kiyama mitzvah connects me back to the person who is involved in the Maisa mitzvah. And the same thing applies in Shofar. The mitzvah is going to be the Tekiah. How does it relate to me? Because the Kiyama mitzvah is the Shmir. And my Kiyama mitzvah Shmir connects me back to the Tokeah.
According to that, if the Tokeah did not hear the call, and only the Shomea heard it, in other words, he blew the shofar, but he had earplugs in. That's okay.
No, he's not Yotze. Why? Because the Kiyama mitzvah,
the,
even according to Rabbeinu Tam, is Shmir.
No, but the Tokeah, let's say he was already Yotze Chiyuv.
I didn't understand you. He was Yotze.
Yeah, but he's not.
He's only blowing for somebody else.
He's not hearing the shofar, but so then you.
Then the Shomea could be Yotze.
But even though the tekiah, the Baal Tekiah is not hearing the kol.
Right, because he's a Bar Chiyuva, and he did the Maisa Tekiah. He doesn't need the Kiyam Shmir because he already was Yotze his mitzvah. So he had already Tekiah plus Shmiya. The Shomea now has Shmiya. What gives him the Maisa Tekiah? The fact that the Kiyum Shmiya will connect him back to the Maisa Tekiah. And as I said before, even if I'm alone in a room and I'm blowing for myself, I am both a Tokea and a Shomea.
Sorry, just to clarify what with regards to what Bobby said, you're saying that even though up till now you've been saying that the Tokea has to be able to hear to be able to connect to the Shemiah. But now you're saying that he doesn't have to as long as there's somebody else there?
Yeah, no, if he was Yotze already, he doesn't have to. He has no obligation whatsoever. You could check off his mitzvah of Shofar. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't need neither Tekiah nor Shmiya. He was Yotze already. He did both Tekiah and Shmiya. But he wants to be Motzi someone else. So he's producing a kol shofar and someone else is hearing the shofar. And that someone else who's hearing the shofar links up to his Tekiah. And he's a Bar Chiyuva, so he has a Maisa Tekiah al pi din.
Because I would have a minute to say that because you need a Maisa Tekiah, that it's only when that's a good Maisa Tekiah for that he's being Yaitza also, that's the only time he can be Moitzi somebody else. I would have such a minute to say that.
Again,
not necessarily that he's
doing a Maisa Tekiah that produces a kol shofar that you can hear. If he doesn't hear it, it's irrelevant to me.
Yeah,
as long as his Tekiah could create a kol.
Why does he have to be a Bar Chiyuva then?
Because Tekiah is the Iker mitzvah. According to Rabbeinu Tam, the Maisa Tekiah, we don't know according to the Rambam. That question we've never addressed. The Rambam is very difficult. The Yom Trua goes way out on the Rambam. The Rambam, who cares if the Baal Tokea is a Bar Chiyuv or not, as long as he produces a kol shofar that I could hear. We tried to suggest, and I think also Joe was suggesting it before, that although the Rambam doesn't require a mitzvah of Tekiah, but he does require creating what's considered a kol shofar. And in order to create a kol shofar, you need someone who's included in the mitzvah of shofar. If he's excluded from the mitzvah of shofar, he cannot create a kol shofar. And therefore, if he's a cheresh, shota, or a katan, he's excluded from the mitzvah of shofar. He cannot create a kol shofar.
But if he's a Bar Chiyuva, even if he's been Yaitza, he can still be Moitzi somebody else.
Right. Because his Tekiah is a valid Tekiah insofar as it creates a Chal Hashem kol shofar. But here we have an unbelievable kasha. And this you'll find on the bottom of page 189. The Gemara tells us, Rosh Hashanah Chavtes, that there's a machlokes amoraim about the following issue. Chetzio Eved v'chetzio ben chorin, right? Just quickly review that. The two people are shutfim and an Eved. One was Meshacher, his half, the other was not. And now he's a Chatzi ben chorin. So his Chatzi ben chorin is chayiv in mitzvahs, even mitzvah seishes man groma, but his Chatzi Eved is potem in mitzvah seishes man groma. Now the question is the following. A, can he blow the shofar for himself? B, can he blow his shofar for somebody else? If you would have asked me in the middle of the night, not knowing this Gemara, I would have certainly said that Rav Huna is right and he could blow the shofar for himself. I'm not sure if he could blow his shofar for someone else because the Chatzi Evet Shabo is also blowing the shofar. Okay, that's an issue. But as far as he himself is concerned, what's the problem? The Chatzi ben Chorin Shabo blows for the Chatzi ben Chorin Shalo. You have both Tekiah and Shmiya. And yet, Rav Huna says, Rav Nachman says, Afli Atzmo Enimotze. There's an interesting quiz question. You know, Ripley's Believe It or Not, you remember that? I'm going to ask you, in what situation can a person who's obligated in shofar not blow shofar for himself? You'll tell me I'm crazy. I'm off my rocker. But Rav Nachman says that if he's a Chatzi Eved ben Chorin, he cannot blow shofar for himself. And that's a pella, because in every other mitzvah, the Chatzi Eved Chatzi Ben Chorin is obligated. So when he sits in Sukkah, it's his Chatzi Ben Chorin Shabo that sits in Sukkah, in a halachic sense. Same thing for lulav and matzah and so forth and so on. And guess what? We paskin like Rav Nachman. And that's Shulchan Aruch Tov Kof Peites, okay, whatever it is. Can't even blow the shofar for himself. So on page 190, he quotes the Rogachev. He calls him the Eli Mi Rogachev. I object. I would call him the Gon of Rogachev. He wasn't just an Eli. You and I are Eluim, but not the Rogachev. The Rogachev is more than an Eli. The Rogachev was Torah in a living form, in a physical body. So the Rogachev is working overtime to try to figure out what's unique about Shofar, such that a Chatzi Eved Chatzi Ben Chorin cannot be Motzias Atzma, which is not true for any other mitzvah. He could read the Megillah on Purim. He could take the lulav on Sukkos. He could sit in the sukkah on Sukkos. So he says here, again, I'm going to read to you the Gemara. It sounds like Freudian psychology. He says, Hatokea nechlak l'shnei gufim. Tokea v'shomea. Hatokea motzi yidei choves hashomea. And I think he means even if I'm blowing it in my own private room for myself, I am two gufim. I'm a tokea and a shomea. And I'm being motzi my guf hashomea through the ma'aseh tekiyah. Or in the Rambam's frame of reference, we would say that with my tekiyah, as a Chatzi Ben Chorin, I'm creating a kol shofar. So the Rogachev says that if the tokeh has to be motzi the shomea, even if they're both the same identity or personality, but they're two gufim, so then the Chatzi Eved Shabo is also blowing the shofar. And he, together with the Chatzi Ben Chorin, is being motzi the Ben Chorin Shabo. That you can't accept. But that doesn't apply neither to lulav, nor to sukkah, nor to any other mitzvah. All right, this has to be analyzed very carefully. I'm reminded of the Minchas Chinuch. The Minchas Chinuch says that a Chatzi Eved Chatzi Ben Chorin is Trey Gavri. He doesn't say two gufim, he says Trey Gavri. So I'm going to assume that what the Minchas China calls Trei Gavri is what the Rogatchover calls Shnei Gufin. And in the Tekiah, to be motzi the Shomea, and again, it's all one person, but the two Gufim or two Gavras that share the same body, then the Tokea of the Eved, of the Chatzi Eved, is blowing for the Chatzi Ben Chor. All right? So we'll stop here, and we'll try to, maybe we could try to continue and finish this up on Wednesday of next week. It's Erev Rosh Hashanah, but still it's a few days before Rosh Hashanah.
Can you talk to us, Rav, for a minute to stop the thing and talk to us?
Sure. I think I have to press on stop recording.